Welcome inside to the opening drive. Nick Kosko alongside Mike Antosiewicz. Back here again, as always, every Monday morning, 8 to 9 a.m. here on 88.7 WRSU FM and online at WRSU.org. Packed show today. Rutgers football finally getting a victory, especially in the Big Ten. Been a long time coming. Touch on some college football. Crazy weekend in college football. Lots of upsets, and that began Friday night. We'll touch on the MLB a little bit as well. Both series in the league championship series are 2-0 in favor of Houston and LA. Both are halfway to punching their tickets to the World Series. And of course, we will touch on the NFL, another good weekend in the NFL. And it was a good weekend for me, Mike, in the NFL, considering my weekend for the NFL started on Thursday with a victory. I kind of just sat back and enjoyed over the weekend. But we'll start with Rutgers football here on this very show. And, Mike, it was a good weekend for the Scarlet Knights. Led the entire way against Illinois. Went on the road. Took care of business. 35-24, they win. And ultimately, we can kind of breathe for a second, considering if they had lost on Saturday, I don't know what I would have done myself. I don't know what this fan base would have done to themselves. And who knows what Chris Ash might have been thinking to himself if he had dropped the game to Illinois, especially since Lovie Smith, who I do respect as a head coach. I think we both have come to the agreement, especially over the past couple of weeks, that we're kind of dumbfounded that he took that job, and he just seems like he does not care.
You know, I think it was Tim Carofamo who made this observation during the game. This was still the first half. Rutgers just got a score, and Tim Carofamo said, "This is interesting. Lovie Smith is on his sideline, quiet, taciturn. He didn't use a big word like taciturn. It's Tim Carofamo.
He doesn't have your vocabulary yet.
But quiet, stoic, not really doing anything. And he looked to the Rutgers sideline, and he sees Ash moving up and down the sideline, talking to his guys, exhorting his guys, getting them up, getting them ready. Although they were in a positive game situation, which doesn't happen, right? He's fostering more excitement there, and I think that tells you all you need to know about just from the two coaches, right? Lovie, he's just quiet. He's on the ride. He's on the bandwagon, and I think he's hoping he just doesn't get whiplash. And again, I don't think he cares. He's been an NFL coach. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to the playoffs before multiple times. I just don't think he really, if he fails at Illinois, okay. Ash is a completely different situation for him. He needs Rutgers. He needs this Rutgers stop to be one that catapults him to other opportunities.
Let's hope if he's successful here, he doesn't leave necessarily.
No, not leave in like 2 years. But you know what I'm saying. The fact of the matter is...
Well, you're right. Today's day and age, no one stays here forever.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, all these positions are temporary. Ash knows that. He could win a bowl game next year. He knows that eventually the rubber's going to hit the road and he's going to have to go. But, he needs this position. He's cared. He's invested in it. I just don't think Lovie is invested in it in any way.
No, I don't think he is either. But just getting back to the game, the actual game on Saturday, they look good. The run game came alive, to say the least. Nearly 300 yards of rushing, 47 carries between 4 different running backs. You had Gus Edwards to the bulk of the carries. You saw Raheem Blackshear. He had 6 carries, I believe, for 87 yards and a nice little touchdown. He's a nice change of pace back. He's a speedy back, and they should need to utilize him more because he looked very good on Saturday. You saw Josh Hicks even score a touchdown. He got in the mix. And Robert Martin, it's going to be interesting moving forward now, Mike. And Rutgers is coming back home this weekend against Purdue in their homecoming game. Purdue, much better than everybody thought they were going to be. It's going to be interesting to see, now that all 4 running backs got action on Saturday, you saw Gus Edwards carry the bulk of the load. You saw what Blackshear could do. It's interesting to see. I think Ash and Kill might have a doghouse, so to speak. Once Robert Martin coughed up that fumble, you did not see him carry the ball again until later in the second half, despite the fact that he scored a touchdown and had decent stats on Saturday. It's going to be very interesting to see that rotation moving forward. But the big news on the offense was the quarterbacks, Gio Ricchino. And he came in as a starter, very pedestrian stats, 5 of 10, 89 yards. But he added that dimension to the offense where he is able to use his legs and mobility, and add in the fact that he can actually throw, unlike true freshman Jonathan Lewis at the moment. He kept the defense honest, and I know it's Illinois, but he added a extra dimension to the offense that Jerry Kill wants. Now, is he a great quarterback? I don't think so. Is he the best option for the team moving forward? I think you have to roll with him at this point, and Ash already said he's not going to flip-flop quarterbacks. No, you can't at this point. At this point, he's the guy moving forward. And I know you and I were both proponents of Kyle Bolin going into the year, and Ash even said before in his post-game presser, he said Bolin was the guy in the beginning, or whenever Ash talked about the quarterbacks and his decision, he said Bolin was the right decision at the beginning of the year, and I think that's probably the correct answer, just because if they thought Bolin was good enough to lead this team, that means Rashino did not have a good camp, did not look good in this new offense led by Jerry Kill. So in my mind, Bolin was the right decision, and I think if they were going to make a change at quarterback, they did it right in the sense that they waited till the bye week to take 2 weeks to evaluate to get guys healthy and to really open their eyes to a quarterback competition. And Gio came out on top. I still leave Bolin as your backup. He actually had to come in the game because Rashino got hurt, and that's my biggest concern moving forward. If Rashino is not healthy in terms of his mobility,
just go back to Bolin. It's not worth complicating this.
No. It's almost like you can't go back to him because then.
Yeah, if Rashino's not healthy, and then you have to go to the next man up, and the next man up is Kyle Bolin.
No. In that sense, yes. What I'm referring to is if Rashino's healthy enough to go out there, but if he's going to be limited, like last year, I'll take it right from last year. We saw against Minnesota, he looked really good when he could throw and run, and he really kept the defense on their toes. But we saw once he tweaked his hamstring against Minnesota, the game slowed down, and they ended up losing that game. And you saw the rest of the season. He couldn't really use his legs that much, and he was forced to beat teams with his arm. And he's not going to be able to do that either. So my point is, if he's not healthy enough to the point where he can be a multi-dimensional quarterback, he's just a Kyle Bolin 2.0. I think as long as he's healthy enough to go out there, you have to put him in there because he led the team to a victory. Obviously, if he's not healthy enough at all, you put Bolin back in there. But I'm saying he's a Kyle Bolin 2.0 if he can't use his legs, and he's just another pedestrian quarterback on this roster.
Honestly, the fact of the matter is they're all pedestrian quarterbacks. But
give the kid a little credit for adding something. He's not. None of them are that good. None of them are that good.
Exactly.
He gives them the best chance to be competitive and to win at the moment because he can actually throw the ball, but he can also use his legs. You look at Jonathan Lewis. He can only run, and they know what he's going to do. He can't throw at all.
Yeah, but Nick, there's a varying degrees of being injured, obviously. But if he can't move at all, and you completely get rid of his mobility, I think you have to go with Bolin. And you saw this, too. The type of injury he has affects his throwing, right? He went down at one point.
That's all going to depend on the severity of his injury. He said he was fine after the game.
Yeah, but he threw up short. He threw an intermediate pass, and he literally just collapsed to the ground because he moved his knee in a way that he thought he almost tore it.
I know. That's what I'm afraid of, but you have to wait to see what the evaluation period is this week.
I'd rather have a fully healthy quarterback than a quarterback that might twist his knee
so would I,
on a regular
throw.
So
would I, but it has to come to the point where if Rashino's hurt badly enough, that's the only way you go back to Bolin. I still think Bolin can be a nice little game manager, but he's not going to beat you with his legs, so it takes away a dimension from the offense. You need a guy like Rashino in there right now, and I don't like the quarterback management at all this entire season. I haven't liked it since last year either. But the whole point is he gives you the extra dimension at the moment to give you a better chance to win because Jerry Kill is going to utilize his legs. And Ash already said he's not going to flip-flop on the quarterbacks, which is, I think, the biggest point you take out of it. So I would say, and it might be the wrong thing to do, but if he is healthy enough to just go out there and at least throw the ball and manage the game, they're not going to take him out. I think that's the whole point of their mismanagement and of the quarterbacks that they just don't exactly have an exact formula on how to utilize that quarterback room. But one thing I will say, I think you have to give credit to the entire quarterback room, because Ash at least gave compliments to his quarterback room for taking the change in stride and also just helping each other out and picking each other up throughout the 2-week bye week.
Evaluation of our football team in the bye week, and just looking at all the surrounding pieces around the quarterback and what we felt like we needed to do in the best interest of our team moving forward. We did that, and Gio gave us a spark today that we needed, and but we needed Kyle too. Obviously, Gio we ran him a little bit and got hurt, and Kyle came in and led us on a drive that sealed the game at the end. So, and then Jonathan got in there, but really proud of that group. That room, they take a lot of heat because we haven't done well on offense. That's the nature of the position, but those guys continue to work. They got great chemistry and great relationship with the coach, and couldn't be happier for those guys.
So, again, good compliments from Ash on the quarterback room, but I'll maintain my stance, Mike, that they just don't know how to manage quarterbacks. They don't know who to start necessarily for an entire season. And I get we've had fans call into our very own studios, especially during the post games of these football games, and they say, Rashino should have been started from the get-go. And I get where you're coming from, but you have to understand, Bolin was the guy as soon as he came in. As soon as he came into this program, he was the guy moving forward. You had to see that because Rashino gave you a limited glimpse last year, and you saw if he's not fully healthy, he's not going to grasp the full quarterback position. And plus, you had a new offensive coordinator in. Of course, he's going to go with the experienced guy. It's as simple as that. And I would hope this carousel's over. And I think as long as Gio's healthy, they have a good shot to win this weekend. They can hopefully be somewhat competitive against the powers that be, against Michigan and Penn State coming up. And, Maryland's the first game in November as well, Mike. They might have a chance to steal that game as well, just because they're down to their own third-string quarterback, but possibly even fourth-string at this point, and they're kind of going downhill a bit. Can Rutgers win another game? I think they can win one, maybe even two more, and it could be Purdue and Maryland. But
they're not beating Purdue.
No, I know. Well, I'm saying they have a chance. Because you got to remember, I know homecoming is like a dark day on the schedule for this team.
But Nick, what did you see last game that thought, maybe this team could actually go out and win? I understand they beat Illinois, but it was sloppy all around. I'm not calling it a great game. They got to win. That's all I can say. That was what my takeaway was from this game.
I didn't even think they were going to win on Saturday.
You didn't think they were going to win, but fact of the matter is, the team still plays such sloppy football that it precludes them from having an upset, because
I understand that
they're just not going to play a clean enough game. We talk about mishandling the quarterbacks. The fact of the matter is the team just plays sloppy football all around.
Well, you got to realize this game is at home.
Maryland. I'm sorry to cut you off, but Maryland, I think there's an actual chance because you said because the quarter situation is so dismal, as you said. And they might be prone to making some mistakes, but now this team just is never going to put themselves in a position where they could capitalize. What they do is they give other teams positions to capitalize on them, and because it's in the Big Ten, those teams are usually able to do that. If you go against Purdue and Damon Hayes lets up a long catch, or there's another fumble at a certain point, it's going to be 14-0.
I'm not picking Rutgers to win this weekend. Purdue is much better than everybody thought, as I mentioned before, and they seem like they're a decent football team this year. You got to remember, Rutgers' defense is still decimated with injuries in the secondary, and I get Juwan Harris played well on Saturday, but you can't expect him, a guy who went from wide receiver to defensive back just last week. I get he made, 10, 11 tackles, forced a fumble, and even had a pick in the game. Again, that's Illinois. And I didn't, Illinois, I didn't even expect Rutgers to beat Illinois on the road. Am I giving them a chance against Purdue? Yes, it's at home. If Gio is fully healthy, has a full week of practice, running the team, running the offense, if they can get more guys healthy, say if Kai Hesser's back, you can sharpen up the secondary just a bit. So I know you're still missing Saquon Hampton, and obviously you're not going to have Bleswan Austin, but if you can sharpen up the back end of the defense, if you have Gio take the full slate of first-team reps this week, run the offense of how he wants to run it and let Jerry Kill go to work with him because they think he finally has a quarterback, at least at the moment, who can do more of what he wants, and that's throw and run. And if they can balance that out with the run game as they did this weekend, I'll tell you what, I'll give them a chance. Am I picking them to win? No, because Purdue can score a lot, and if they go up big, we know this Rutgers team is not coming back at all to win a shootout. So I can't prematurely pick that they're going to win this game. I think they could be competitive, or it could just get ugly. It's as simple as that. And of course, they're going to have on the road against Michigan the following week. They're not waltzing in there winning that game. Maryland seems to be a more winnable game than it did earlier in the season. Indiana's always a toss-up. They always play them well somehow. They're not beating Penn State, and they're not beating Michigan. It's as simple as that. This team could still finish with just 2 wins, possibly 3, maybe even 4. If they finish with 3 or 4, if they finish with 4 wins, Mike, that's a victory for the entire season. But
I think right now, let's face it, I don't think they're going to win another game. I think that
I'm not guaranteeing they're going to win one more game.
I think in terms of victories, we have to change our criteria. And this is the last point I want to make, because I think we spent too much time on this game, on this team anyway, evaluating this game. I said this before. One of the defining factors or facets behind the season will be how they play against a Michigan. And honestly, if they lose by more than 3 touchdowns
that's what I was saying before.
Michigan,
they have to be competitive. You can't afford more 56-0 blowouts.
I completely agree with you in that point. And
they can play competitive, but Penn State's now ranked number 2. If they go into Penn State and they're down 21-0 in a matter of 6 minutes, I mean they're going to walk out of there losing 49-2, 49-3.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The criteria for this
just
team
be competitive
right now
and just show
being
you
competitive.
Yeah, that's it.
But honestly, I do have, and it's be ironic for you because I'm so pessimistic, but I do have an expectation that they don't lose by more than 17 points to Michigan, because Michigan.
They do. And we'll talk about Michigan right after the break. I mean, they look a little shaky. So we're going to step aside, take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to give you a little blip on the MLB playoffs, give you a little update, and just show you how wrong our predictions are. And also, we'll give you all the college football news, lots of upsets, and we'll talk about some other teams in the Big Ten, including Michigan, who Rutgers does play in 2 weeks. Make sure to keep it locked. Listening to the opening drive here on 88.7 WRSU FM and online at WRSU.org. Welcome back inside to the opening drive. Nick Kosko, Mike Antosiewicz. Packed show today. We're going to try to get it all to you. Quick update on the MLB playoffs. Houston up 2-0 on the Yankees, and the LA Dodgers up 2-0 on the Chicago Cubs. Mike, who'd you have in the World Series? You had the Cubs in the World Series, correct? I think you had the Cubs. You had the Cubs and the Indians.
I don't even remember.
I think you had the Cubs and the Indians, actually. You had a rematch of last year. It's all right.
Did I have a rematch of that?
I think you did. We agreed totally on the AL again. We both had Cleveland, Boston, but that was only dependent on Chris Sale having a great start game 1, which he did not. And we both had Cleveland go to the World Series. I had the Nationals actually go to the World Series, beating the Cubs and then beating the Dodgers. So I only had 1 of 3 teams correct in the Final Four. So I was way off. And I think you had Dodgers, Cubs, so you're 2 of 4. So I would say you fared a little bit better than I did in our predictions. But both teams up 2-0.
Those damn Yankees.
Yeah, that was the biggest surprise. I mean, I'm not shocked the Red Sox lost, but that was the biggest surprise. Seeing the Yankees win. Well, with both teams up 2-0, do you see either of these teams coming back? I don't think the Cubs can come back. Just based on watching those games. I think for the Cubs, it's just so deflating that they could not. Actually, I can't even see both teams coming back right now. But they're both in 2-0 holes. Houston edged out the Yankees 2-1 in 2 separate games with great starting pitching, and that's without their offense coming alive in those 2 games, like how they did in the Boston series. Houston's offense is so much better. I think the Yankees can win a game, maybe even 2. But I don't think I see the Cubs winning more than 1 game. I think I think at this point you're easily going to see LA Houston. How about you? Before we go to college football, do you see either of these teams ever? Do you see either the Yankees or the Cubs coming back?
I don't think they're going to come back. No.
Even though you picked the Cubs to go to the World Series, you don't think the Cubs can climb out of that hole?
I'm not sure if it's a hole. I think it's more like an abyss.
So you're definitely ruling out the Cubs. How about the Yankees? I think the Yankees can really win a game or two. Make it
I think the
interesting.
Yankees can win a game or two. Yeah, the fact of the matter is,
They might win tonight. They're back in New York tonight. They might win tonight.
The fact of the matter is, do I think they're going to win the series? And I just, no. Because let's say they win a game, right, and then the other team wins a game, right? So
it's 3-1 Houston at that point.
Let's say the hole's 10 feet, right, and then they win a game, and then they put some, and then so then the hole only is like 5 feet, but then they win a game, and they're only one game now from winning the series. The hole went from, let's say, 5 feet back down to 25.
So it was even deeper.
Yes. So,
that's okay. All right, sorry. I just wanted to get your little take on that. But it's going to be interesting. Game 3 for the Yankees and the Astros is tonight. It's in New York. The series shifts there for the next 2, maybe even 3 games. If the Yankees can win one, we'll see how that plays out, and we'll give you more updates on the baseball playoffs next week, especially. I believe the World Series will have started or about to start by the time we get to our show next week. But let's switch gears now, Mike, to college football. The weekend had a lot of upsets. Namely, the biggest one had to be Clemson going down on Friday night to Syracuse. And how about Clemson?
Syracuse of all
destroying Syracuse last year. I get they had Deshaun Watson. And it was in Clemson. This one was in Syracuse, in the Orange Dome. Syracuse edges them 27-24. And then that same night, Mike, Washington State, who I thought was a pretty good team just because of their offense.
I always thought
I didn't think they were going to make a great run or try to make a run for the playoffs this year. But they got dismantled 37-3 to California on the road. So those are the 2 big upsets on Friday night. And then Washington, who Rutgers played really well. And I think it's more of a testament to Washington not being that good this year. They went on the road to Arizona State. They only scored 7 points. They lost 13-7.
Yeah, Rutgers' performance against them doesn't seem to be as much of a fluke.
It's still good for where it's still good for where Rutgers is, but Washington does not look as formidable as I thought they were going to be.
As formidable. John. Oh my God,
John Ross. John Ross was gone after.
I almost said John Brown. John Ross.
That's
a
big loss. Big loss.
Yeah, and it seems like they just not able to have as much of an open offense.
Exactly. Some other upsets, Mike. LSU, I didn't even see this game, actually. LSU took out Auburn in LSU by 27-23. So I think Auburn might be done. They might not have a shot at the playoff anymore. Miami, number 11 Miami, who just jumped up to number 8 now in the new AP, the Associated Press rankings. They only edged Georgia Tech by a point, but they're still undefeated. So I would like to see Miami go on a little bit of a run. Oklahoma edged out Texas, so they avoided an upset.
But Texas looks like they're finally getting their stride now.
Yeah, they're 3-3. So Tom Herman seems to be riding the ship a little bit. USC just edged out Utah by a point, 28-27. USC still 6-1. They could make a run at the playoff, but that loss to who they lose to. Now I forget who they lost to. That one loss is going to kill them.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but
I'll look it up.
One thing to note from that USC game, Darnold left. Not left. He led 3 85-plus yard drives that game.
So he looks like he's back to form. He looks like he's back to form now.
Listen, I'm not the biggest guy on him, but the fact of the matter is they were down and they needed to not score points. They needed to drive and score points, and he did it. So there you go. Credit.
Michigan. We were just talking about Michigan before the break. Indiana almost stole this game at home against Michigan. Michigan needed overtime to beat Indiana 27-20. Indiana actually scored 10 points in the fourth quarter to tie the game. Nearly won it. I think they might have gotten the onside kick actually near the end of the game and almost stole that game.
No, they didn't get the onside kick.
They did not get that. Okay, so all right, I lost my train of thought there. West Virginia, small upset at home, beat number 24 Texas Tech 46-35. And how about Memphis taking on number 25 Navy at home 30-27. That's pretty much it for the upsets in the notable games. Alabama just looks ridiculous. 41-9 over Arkansas. They're not even challenged.
They only scored, a 70-yard touchdown on the first play?
I think so. How about Georgia, though, Mike? Jake Fromm, who I know we both love, and I know I brought him up a lot. And once he stepped in for Jacob Eason after the injury at quarterback, the true freshman quarterback for Georgia, Jake Fromm, 18-26, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Georgia just destroyed Missouri at home, 53-28. Their running game is also ridiculous.
On 18 throws, 326 yards. That's absolutely ridiculous. But
he looks good. Georgia looks good. I think they're the biggest challenge to Alabama.
And the fact of the matter is they're going
to meet each other in the SEC championship.
Yes, because they don't play each other during the regular season. So then everything comes to the SEC championship game. But the way it looks right now, let's say Clemson loses. Let's say Clemson loses another one, for example.
Another game. That's interesting.
Let's say Clemson loses a game, for example.
I think they would have to play. I don't think they play Miami in the regular season.
There's two SEC teams because if Alabama and Georgia are both undefeated,
the loser might still get in.
The loser might still get in, especially because you don't know what's going to happen with Clemson now. You just don't know what's going to happen with the Big Ten. Part of me thinks that Penn State is going to lose to Ohio State.
They're going to lose to Ohio State or Michigan, and then one of those teams is going to beat the other.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a shot that there's two SEC teams in it. I don't think there's going to be a Pac-12 team in the college football playoff.
No, I think the Pac-12 kind of screwed themselves almost, just considering USC lost, Washington State lost, and one of them's going to have 2 losses, so they're going to be out, and it's just not going to look as big of a quality win. The Big 12 to me still has a shot with Oklahoma. Actually, no, TCU actually would be the team to get in if they finish undefeated. I don't think Oklahoma's going to get in now. I think unless they beat TCU, I don't know. The Big 12 kind of screwed themselves a little bit. Right now, it's looking like
the part of the Big 12 is they don't have a championship game.
No, they do.
Oh, they do.
This is the first year they're going to bring it back. So, but if you look at Oklahoma's schedule, they still only have like one division. So the top 2 teams. Let's just say Oklahoma and TCU are the top 2 teams, which they arguably could be. I think for TCU and Oklahoma to play was that they play each other November 11th. I think for them to face each other again in the Big 12 championship, I'd say Oklahoma has to win, and then TCU would have to finish. They would have to both have to win out after that. And I'm not sure why the standings say this. And I know Oklahoma lost to Iowa State, and they're both 2-1 in the conference. So I'm surprised Iowa State's not over Oklahoma. I think that has to be a mistake there. But if you look at it, I think the Big 12's biggest chance now, or biggest shot for the college football playoff, Mike, has to be TCU. Because if they go out and win out, especially if they beat Oklahoma, and they maybe even beat them again in the Big 12 title game, as long as TCU it goes through the season and they're 13-0 with a conference championship game, I think TCU has a good case to get in the top 4 at the end of the season.
If they're undefeated, yes.
They're the Big 12's only shot, I think. I don't think Oklahoma can get in now.
I don't think it's going to be Oklahoma.
You never know. A lot of stuff could happen. There's still a lot to go.
But then again, Oklahoma plays TCU, so
yeah, that's going to be interesting. If they beat TCU, then what happens? You know what I mean? Alabama to me is in. They're always in.
No, but they could lose in the SEC championship.
But you do realize this, as you mentioned. I get
that's why there needs to be a 16 playoff.
At least 6, yes.
At least 6. I think 8 would make sense. 16 playoff. You would have 2-round playoff before the national championship game, so it would be like an abbreviated NFL playoff.
Yeah, so you'd have the top 2 get buys.
The top 2 get buys, and it would be better that way. You could have all 5 power conferences be represented, and then you have an extra wild card. But honestly, the issue is with if you have 6 spots, you kind of are forced to have all Power 5 conferences represented. But the fact of the matter is that one wild card spot left over probably won't be enough because this is probably going to be a case for a second Big Ten.
I think the playoffs should be expanded, Mike.
And a second SEC team each year. So I honestly think if they're willing to go 6, just do 8. It should be an 18 playoff.
No, yeah, I don't think they would ever do 6. I think if they expand, they're going to go. They would go 8. I think they should do that. But my only problem with expanding the playoff is once they go to 8, Mike, they'll stop there. I mean, they're not going to go 16. They would never do that. No. But once they go to 8, Mike, there's going to be more argument of why does, say if you finish number 9, there's going to be that argument where you could have like a 2-loss team, potentially even a 3-loss team that's ranked number 9 through 11, and they're going to say, well, I know we had more losses, but we had better quality wins and more quality losses, so why isn't, say it's Oklahoma State who could finish 9-3, why aren't they number 8 over a 10-2 Miami? Because we have better, you know what I mean. Then you have. But you know what though? Nick? They have lesser teams trying to make the argument that they should be in number 8.
There's a big difference in that situation. If I'm the college football playoff committee, this is what I say. I say, listen, if it's top 4,
which it is,
right? It's top 4 right now. The team that doesn't get out probably deserved to be in it. Probably was good enough to be in it, right? But are disadvantaged because of the situation, right? If you're number 9, right? Yeah, you might be able to get into the competition, but you're still number 9. You understand my point? Is you did not demonstrate.
I see it.
You did not demonstrate. Like, if you're number 4, 5 and you get left out, that's one thing. You're a top 5 team in the country. If you're number 9, There's 8 other teams.
It's a little different. I see your point.
You know what I mean?
I do see your point.
To say that they're being cheated by the system, it's going to be
essentially.
There's going to be close calls. There's always going to be close calls, but the fact of the matter is, you know what? If you were a team that wanted to compete for the college football playoff,
you should have won more games.
You should have won more games. You should have made it to the national championship.
I agree.
If you're the fifth team, if you're the 5th best team in the country, you've done enough for me to say, you know what? You deserve to be in it. If you're the 9th team, I'm sorry. That right isn't automatically given.
Going back to Alabama, though, Mike, we mentioned this before. If they play Georgia and they're both undefeated in the SEC title game, I actually think if Georgia wins the game, obviously
that's what I think too. Okay,
we're getting to the same point. If Georgia wins, they're in, but Alabama's also going to be in. If Alabama wins and Georgia loses, they're going to say, well, Georgia, we'll evaluate you just a little bit more. There's other teams in this area. They're not going to leave. If Alabama loses just the SEC championship game, I don't think they can. I don't think they're leaving out Alabama. As long as Alabama has been dominating, if they lose a close game to Georgia, Mike, they're going to find reason to try to keep Alabama in the top 4. Because if you look at it, there's not much other competition. You look at Penn, just say right now it is where it is right now. Just say we're going into the conference championship games right now, and these are the standings. Bama's 1, Penn State's 2 right now, Georgia's 3, TCU's 4. So you have TCU playing for a Big 12 championship. If they win, they're undefeated.
I'm fine with that, by the way, because Clemson does not look like a team that.
No, not right now. And if
Clemson last year. And let finish your point. I'm sorry.
We'll get into Clemson in a second. Right now, if you just finish it out right here, top 4, and we're going into the championship weekend, you have the top 4 teams are undefeated, but you also have a team like Wisconsin, who is undefeated as well, for the Big Ten championship game. So let's say right now it's a 5-team race. Ohio State will be out of it. Clemson. Let's say Clemson plays an undefeated Miami team right now. So those are your top 8 teams that have a chance for the playoff. Alabama wins, they're in. Penn State wins, they're in. If all top 4 teams win, they'll obviously all be undefeated.
Although I think Penn State's going to go down to Ohio State. Not this weekend, the game's next weekend when we're actually in Michigan. So right after that Michigan game, we have to go straight back to the hotel to watch that game.
We watch it. So let's say hypothetically here we have Alabama versus Georgia, you have Penn State versus Wisconsin, and you have TCU versus Oklahoma. And let's say you have Clemson, Miami. Alabama wins, they're in. Penn State wins, they're in. That means Georgia, to me, is out. Let's say if TCU wins, they're in. So you have Bama, Penn State, TCU. Georgia, to me, would be out if Miami wins. If Miami finishes undefeated, they're going to the playoff. If you're undefeated, you have a good chance for the playoff. It's going to be very interesting to see it because right now you have 2 SEC teams. And I'm telling you, if Georgia beats Alabama and they're both undefeated, but Georgia gets the conference championship, they're going to leave Alabama in. Because I don't think Penn State's going to finish undefeated. Wisconsin is really good.
When you say Penn State's not going to finish undefeated, does that mean they lose to Ohio State? Because I don't see them losing to anybody but Ohio State.
I think if Penn State
before the championship, now
losing before the championship, I could see him losing to Ohio State. But I'm not going to be shocked if Penn State's undefeated going to the conference championship.
And I could see them losing to Wisconsin, honestly.
I think Wisconsin's really good. I think at this point the SEC winner is in. Because right now it's either going to be Alabama or Georgia.
And if you look at their schedules, they're both going to be undefeated before that SEC championship.
Most likely. Alabama and Auburn always play a tough game, but Auburn just dropped one, and Alabama just looks ridiculous once again. To me, the SEC winner is going to get in, whether it be Bama or Georgia. The Big Ten winner is going to get in because I think Wisconsin is going to roll through the Big Ten West and finish undefeated, and then possibly win the conference championship game over Penn State or Ohio State. I don't see Michigan getting there this one unless Michigan wins out. If Michigan wins out and they beat an undefeated Wisconsin team, I'm not going to be shocked to see Michigan propel back from 19 all the way to potentially into the top 4. And I get Michigan lost to Michigan State, but it's a rivalry game. And right now Michigan State is above Michigan. I would not be shocked. But Michigan obviously would need tiebreakers over Michigan State to get into the Big Ten championship game. But if Michigan won out and beat an undefeated Wisconsin team, Mike, don't be surprised to see Jim Harbaugh in the college football playoff. The Big Ten winner is going to get in.
No, there's not a shot that Michigan is going.
Don't rule it out. I'm telling you, don't rule it out. If they win out, Mike, beating Ohio State and Penn State and then beat Wisconsin.
I think there's a chance Michigan, is only beating Rutgers by a touchdown in the fourth quarter. I mean,
I think you're a little crazy. I don't think it's going to be that close.
I would not be surprised going into the fourth quarter. That game is like 17-10.
I'm going to pull back on that a little bit.
I don't think it's going to happen. I didn't say that. I said I wouldn't be surprised because this team can't score.
It's almost a cop-out right there. You wouldn't be surprised, but it's not going to happen.
No, I'm not saying if somebody said, "What do you think the score is going to be going in the fourth quarter?"
I'm going to say Michigan's going to win that game against Rutgers. I don't know, 49-20.
Perhaps right. I was actually thinking like 45-20. I don't think it's going to be as high as 49, but no, the 4-point difference there. But it would not be out of the realm of possibility that they're only leading Rutgers by a touchdown going into the fourth quarter. This team does not have an offense.
It's true. I'll give it to you.
They have that back. Is it Cohen? What's his name? That not Cohen.
Rigdon. I think it's Rigdon. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Rigdon. Rigdon.
And if Rutgers could have some sort of ball possession on offense and take away the running options for Michigan, that team is going to stutter. That team sputters every single week.
I'll give it to you.
Every week, Nick.
Essentially, my point is at the end here for the college football playoff, the SEC winner is going to get in. I'm pretty sure the Big Ten winner is going to get in, and then you get to fill out the rest. I don't think Pac-12 is getting in. Big 12, maybe. ACC could be Clemson. Clemson could get in. They lost to Pitt last year and they got in. Right? Isn't they lost to Pittsburgh last year? And they
yes,
got in.
but didn't Clemson beat FSU this last year?
When FSU was good.
And FSU is good, so that does a lot because they did have that win.
Well, Clemson's quality win to me would be if they win out, go to the ACC title game, and if Miami's undefeated and they beat Miami.
Did Louisville win this weekend?
They lost again.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But Louisville's garbage at this point.
Yeah, Louisville's garbage at this. I just wanted to know.
Essentially, I wouldn't rule out Clemson getting back in.
No, I won't rule it out either. But what if Miami beats Clemson in the ACC championship?
If Miami's undefeated, they're in. If Miami's undefeated, they're in.
Wow.
They're number 8 right now. If they win out, they're in. To me, it's going to be SEC, Big Ten, and then it's a toss-up between the Big 12, the ACC, and
Georgia.
Well, yeah, basically Georgia at this point. I think the Big 12 winner has to be undefeated, and that's TCU right now. If they're undefeated, they're in. I think the Big Ten winner and the SEC winner are in, and then at that point, let's say all that happens, Mike. Then it's a toss-up between the ACC champion and Georgia. As long as Georgia wins out and they only lose to Alabama, to me that's the way the playoff is going to end. I'm not saying it's predictable because the college football playoff is very unpredictable considering how the rankings are formulated. But it's going to be an interesting ride. I think the first rankings come out either next week or the week after, so it's going to be very interesting to see where they lie right now. But according to the AP Top 25, number 1 Alabama, number 2 Penn State, number 3 Georgia, number 4 TCU. Those would be playoff teams right now. And then the 4 teams on the outside looking in. Number 5 Wisconsin, number 6 Ohio State, number 7 Clemson, and number 8 Miami and Oklahoma. And Oklahoma State 9 and 10, round up the top 10 right there. So we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk some NFL. Your Jets, Mike, the subject of controversy at home against the Patriots. And I'm sure you were fired up about that yesterday.
No, I really wasn't.
Okay, well, we'll get into it anyway, so make sure to keep it locked. NFL talk on the other side. You're listening to The Opening Drive here on 88.7 WRSU FM and online, WRSU.org. Welcome back inside to The Opening Drive. Nick Kosko, Mike Antosiewicz. We're going to finish up the show here last 17, 18 minutes. Finish up with the NFL. I'll start quickly, Mike, with my team, the Philadelphia Eagles, getting a nice Thursday night win over the Carolina Panthers, 28-23 on the road. A good win. Carson Wentz looks fantastic. Defense stepped up with Fletcher Cox back. Gutted out a win. A little bit sloppy in the beginning, but they managed to hold off the Panthers. And that's a big win for my Eagles, Mike. Top of the NFC right now. I'm very, very excited, to say the least.
They're revving on all cylinders right now. There appears to be an actual running game. Not this cute stuff of Darren Sproles. Not that Darren Sproles is a bad player by any chance, but something more solid, more foundational. Carson Wentz has an arm on him. I still don't think Alshon Jeffrey is still completely integrated into this offense.
I don't think so either, which is kind of scary.
Which is kind of scary. And on top of that, the defense, they have their engines revving too. So a complete football team right now for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think that that could pretty much carry them in this division because the Cowboys are not what they once were, and it looks like Ezekiel Elliott will be missing an extended period of time now.
If nobody heard that, Zeke Elliott's the courts ruled in favor of basically the NFL to allow them to suspend Elliott, and looks like he's going to be serving that suspension starting this week for 6 games. And that's a huge run there for the Cowboys, who are sitting there at 2-3. So it's going to be an interesting watch to see the Cowboys what they can do without him, especially with a couple divisional games coming up. It's just some other stuff around the NFL, Mike. I mean, I can't really speak too much about the Eagles at this point, just because they won. You gotta feel good. They're top of the NFC. They have the best. They're tied for the best record in the NFL. Only one above them is Kansas City, 5-1, and Kansas City would obviously hold a certain tiebreaker in terms of the best record in the NFL, considering Kansas City beat the Eagles back in Week 2. But some big things from this weekend, Mike, and we'll just run through a couple scores real quick. Miami going on the road, beating Atlanta, stealing a win. If you're Atlanta, you're 3-2. That just can't feel good to lose to Jay Cutler and the Miami Dolphins, who are now 3-2 somehow.
And honestly, I think there's a very good chance the Jets go down to them next week because the Jets are at Miami next week, and it's a Miami team. They have a strong defense. They do have talent at the skill positions, and that's what made this team so dismal earlier in the years, because they actually do have talent at the skill positions. They have a running back in Jay Ajayi. So. No, this Dolphins team is not.
There's talent on the team, but they're going to go as far as Adam Gase and Jay Cutler take them.
The Falcons are terrible, but I mean, honestly, they're terrible. Last year, they won 11 games, right? And people.
I think they won 13 games last year.
They won 13 games?
I think so.
All I remember last year is that.
I will check that for you.
Is that people were referring to them as a weak Super Bowl team. One of the weaker teams to make it to the Super Bowls.
They did win 11 games last year.
Exactly. That's my point. They weren't, and they were in a terrible division too last season. And this division doesn't seem to be that much improved this year.
I think Carolina's improved.
A bit more
Carolina's improved, but it remains to be seen. They're going to go as far as Cam Newton takes them. But to your point about Miami, same thing with them. They're going to go as far as Jay Cutler and Adam Gase take them.
Yeah, they're going to go as far as that. I completely agree. But this Falcons team is just not good. This reminds me of the first year under Dan Quinn when they started 5-0 and then they finished.
They collapsed
8-8 or something like that.
It was some along those lines.
Or I think they finished 7-9 or something like that.
I forget what they said. But that was a big meltdown for them.
And it's the and. Last year's team just seems to be more of an apparition than an actual progression. I don't think so much that this team is receding or that they're going back the other way, they're retrogressing. I just think that the team played above themselves last year, and that this is the fact of the matter is Matt Ryan is not Tom Brady's not going to be able to carry every team, and that defense is just structurally unsound. It's not an all around strong, reliable defense. So. From that point of view, the Falcons, I don't see them being realistic Super Bowl contenders.
No, not at this point. And I know it's still early. We're only through 6 weeks in the season, so there's still a lot of football left to play. 11 weeks to go. A couple other scores, Mike. The Vikings, we'll get in the Vikings-Packers in a second. Some other scores, the Saints, 52-38 over the Lions. That was a wild game. They were killing them. Lions started coming back. A lot of defensive touchdowns, and that kind of basically clinched the game there. So the Saints escape with a win at home. They're 3-2. Lions are 3-3, so they're right in the middle of the pack as well. The Redskins, Mike, barely edging out the San Francisco 49ers, 26-24. The Redskins, I think Kirk Cousins looks good, but again, as the case is with most teams, the team, whoever it may be, is going to go as far as their quarterback takes them. I think Cousins is the only reason why the Redskins have any resemblance of being a good team. But we'll see how they move. We'll see how they are moving forward. They seem to have improved in recent weeks, but they barely edged out San Francisco, who is one of the only winless teams in the NFL. How about the Chicago Bears, Mike? We just saw the highlights on the TV as well. The Chicago Bears in overtime go into Baltimore with Mitch Trubisky as their rookie quarterback, only a second start, and they beat Baltimore on the road. Baltimore somehow 3-3. They're 500, but they look
They're
awful.
3-3, but you would think they're one enough 5.
They look terrible. Now, how do they win 3 games?
Does this win tell us more about the Bears, or does it tell us more about the Ravens? I think this win tells us more about the Ravens, honestly. I thought the Bears could be competitive. I think after that first game where
they were competitive with Minnesota, yes.
With
Trubisky.
No, first game of the year.
That's right.
It was Atlanta at home, and they did not roll for Atlanta. Now, I did not think Atlanta was... I thought Atlanta was better then than they actually have shown themselves to be since, but I think Atlanta was a wonderful team. But I still thought that their competitiveness against Atlanta foreboded well for them, and it actually ended up being somewhat correct here. The Bears are a better team, but this Ravens team, John Harbaugh has to be on the hot seat. I don't think there's any way around it at this point. This team looks uninspired.
Flacco doesn't look good anymore.
Flacco
shelved himself.
He's a shell of himself. And this defense, there used to be such thing as the Ravens defense, right? When Rex left to come to the Jets, there was the Ravens. That was the defense.
They still had a good defense after he left.
The league looked up to that defense. Rex Ryan looked up to that defense. That was the prototype for the Jets. That was
right.
And it's completely gone now. He's not been able to maintain or preserve any form of identity with that team since that Super Bowl run. He has. I think he has to be absolutely on the hot seat.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Other scores from the NFL: Texans beat the Browns 33-17. The Browns look like a dumpster fire. Texans are only 500, but they look like a much better team than their record shows. Cardinals 38-33 over the Buccaneers. Ryan Fitzpatrick had to finish that game for Tampa Bay. Winston got hurt, but they were getting killed, and they came back.
But Fitzpatrick actually had a great game. God bless him.
How about Adrian Peterson? 26 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He had one of the nicest runs I've ever seen in my life.
He doesn't even look as fast yet. Did
you see that play where he's going to the right side? He makes like a juke one way, a juke the other way, and then I don't even know what it's called, but like let's say as he jukes back, let's say all the pressure is on his left leg, but then he like there's this cute little move where he just switches. He switches his posture so that now everything's on his all the weight's on his right leg.
Weight shifting.
Yeah, he weight shifted and then it was amazing. It was juke one way, juke the other way, and then weight shift so he could actually run past the defender. It was so sneaky and athletic.
I think it was amazing. He still has a little bit left in the tank. I know he's a 32-year-old running back, and I know he said I could play at least another 4 or 5 years. I
probably could.
He could. He's a physical freak. I could see him playing that much longer, but I don't think that's good. I mean, I could see that just him being in the league. As far as being effective, I don't think so. I think his days are numbered as far as being effective. But he looked good in his Arizona debut. Rams went on the road, beat Jacksonville 27-17.
This Steelers game is absolutely ridiculous.
And the Steelers,
if I was a Chiefs fan, I don't know if I could wake up.
Steelers went on the road, beat the Chiefs 19-13. Defense played well against Kansas City. Antonio Brown had a ridiculous catch off a deflection, just took it to the house. That was basically the game-winning score there. The LA Chargers go on the road to Oakland, and they edge out the Raiders 17-16 by a point. You gotta feel if you're a Raiders fan, they just don't look like they don't look the same. Derek Carr was back, didn't light the world on fire. It just wasn't a good day for the Raiders. And the Giants, Mike, 23-10 over the Broncos on Sunday night. Bit of a surprise, but you had to feel the Giants were going to win a game eventually.
It actually isn't in the grand scheme of things.
Because that's what the Giants do.
No, but this is why. And this game, and the Giants fan here, I think, is going to agree with me, is emblematic of what Giant fans have sometimes considered the Eli Manning era, or really the Eli Manning period, because I know some Giant fans have reticence to give Eli an actual era, but the Eli Manning period, right, with under Coughlin and the Super Bowl run.
It's an Eli Manning era. It's been lasting since 2004.
This is okay, so it's an era.
It's an era.
But my point is, I'm not sure if all Giant fans, are okay or accept all the connotations that go into the notion of an era, right? There's a Montana era. Can we ever say the Eli era is like the Montana era? I don't know. He did win 2 Super Bowls, but there's always been this reticence with Eli for the Giant fan. But this is where this game is not surprising in the grand scheme of things, right? Is that this Giants team is not a winning team in the sense that, first of all, if you look at their record outside of those 2 Super Bowl runs, and if you look at their records during the season, with the Super Bowl runs,
it's not that good.
They're not real winners, but you know what I mean. It's not like they're completely killing it. But this is the point. The Giants in the Eli era have never, ever, ever, ever done well when they've had an expectation to succeed. Never have done well.
No.
Right? The seasons where they were expected to do well, they completely underperformed, just like this season. And then if you know, remember the time it was a divisional round at Meadowlands with the Eagles, and the Eagles went in the Giants.
2008, I remember.
That year they had expectations. The Giants never performed off expectations, and this is the reason why you could not consider the Eli Manning, Tom Coughlin era a dynasty, despite the 2 Super Bowl wins, because A, the consistency, and B, they do not perform with expectations. And the fact that this team was able to go into Denver, I don't think it tells a lot about Denver. I just think Denver is unprepared. I still think they're a good team, but the fact that this team was able,
I can't buy into Denver.
I can't buy into them, but I still think I think they're better than what they showed last night. But
A little bit.
Despite the short-term narrative of the Giants imploding and everything like that,
right.
This is not shocking because this is an underdog team. They don't perform well expectations, but once you shift the expectations off of them,
they start. All of a sudden, they win.
Then they become indignant. The fans become indignant. The team becomes indignant. Oh, we're not getting enough respect. Well, when we give you a simulacrum of respect, they fail. They fail. That's what the record is. And then when you take away any expectation, they overperform.
Oh yeah, they win. They win all of a sudden.
They overperform regularly when you.
That always happens.
This win is so emblematic, my friend, of the Eli era.
Yeah, no, I wasn't shocked about that win last night at all.
Honestly, I am kind of shocked, not because the Giants are so terrible. I obviously I didn't think they could match up well in terms of talent and personnel against Denver. I just thought that Denver at home after a bye week, come on, there's no excuse for Denver. I mean, Denver let that game go, but still, Giants,
especially at home, they didn't look good at all.
The Giants have proved, what the true character is, and the true character is that they're an underdog team. They just are.
Oh,
and
that's
listen.
That's they've always been.
If my team was an underdog team, which means because right now the Jets are only an underdog team because they're always underdogs because they're not good. But if they were an underdog team in the sense that they thrive as underdogs, oh my God, my life would be so much better right now. But
it'd be nice to see.
The Giants. This is what the Giants are, and I think that last night was the perfect embodiment and exemplification of what we as fans are going to have to grapple with when the Eli Manning era ends. And now this is my question to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is looking forward. And by the way, I think the Jets got completely waxed with that.
Yeah,
call,
I won't focus too much on that. The Jets got hosed. That wasn't a fumble at all. He never lost possession of the ball. It cost the Jets a touchdown. And they ultimately could not come back and win that game against the Patriots.
And honestly, the chances that they come out and perhaps win that game completely skyrocket if they in fact if they gave him that touchdown, the game goes into overtime because it would be tied. But anyway, let's go back to my Giants question, sir.
That was our Jets little speech.
Yeah, that's my Jets spiel for today. This is a Giants question, important one. Let's say the Giants only win like 2 more games and they have a top 5 pick. They're in a position now to draft a quarterback, right? The Giants
probably take one if they're not still on Davis Webb.
But listen, the Giants have over the past few years have drafted quarterbacks in rounds. I don't think any. Maybe
I think Davis Webb was a 4th round pick last year.
Yeah, but they've drafted quarterbacks in round 2. I think they also drafted quarterback in round 3. No, they've drafted these heir apparents for Eli, Nassib, and there's one other person that I can't think about right now. And the investments have not been such that they have. Not only have the investments failed, but they haven't been such that they were real investments into the future. They were. What you're hoping is that you could bring somebody in and then, hopefully over a few years develop him. Now, it seems like the Giants are not going to be able to do that, that you're actually going to have to make a full investment into the future quarterback. Well, the Giants now don't want to be, they don't want to be losing, once Eli leaves and and completely crash and then have to completely rebuild. So it would behoove them to get a great quarterback at this point, let Eli
quietly walk out.
And let Eli finish out his contract, and then you have a quarterback for the future. But however, there's 2 teams that you always have to look at in these situations. Indianapolis, luckiest team in the world, up until they ruin Andrew Luck. They had two decades
Still
of
ruining
winning.
them.
Two decades of winning football for Peyton Manning. The first year they're bad. Andrew Luck is the quarterback in the draft. The second team you need to look at is
Green Bay.
Green Bay. But this is the difference between that Green Bay team that drafted Aaron Rodgers and this Giants
He
team.
still sat for 3 years behind Favre.
Yeah, but that Green Bay team was a playoff team that year, right? I think they were picked like he was picked 24 or something like that.
Yeah.
They were a playoff team that year. This Giants team is not a playoff team. If you want, they need an influx of talent and they need a top 10 player. They need that influx of talent. But now this is the question, right? Do you say we need to make the investment for the future and you draft a quarterback for post-Eli, realizing that the chances you are the next Indianapolis Colts are minuscule, right? Or do they say, you know what, Eli, you had a good run for us. We don't think you're going to give us a run for the remainder of your career, or that the run is so eminent that we should devote this pick to infusing the roster of talent, right? So that's one option right there. Quarterback, tell Eli, I'm sorry, you're not that good. Or do the Giants say, listen, we have a great position here for a quarterback, but you know what, though? We still have Eli. You never know. Runs could happen with this team.
I think if they go,
invest talent.
if they have a top 5 pick, they're gonna. I think they should look at a quarterback if they do like.
And then they're going to tell Eli, "I'm sorry, but we're not going to."
Well, no.
Give you all the
I think they would have the guy. I think whoever it is, they would have him sit behind Eli for a year at least. I think Eli still has a year or two left in his tank.
So they're going to forsake Eli. They're going to say, Eli, there's the next Odell in this draft, or Eli, there's the next. I don't know the name of a good tight. The next Gronkowski in this draft. But we're not going to give you him because you know what? We're looking for the long term.
Mike, my thing is with the Giants, Eli is the quarterback for the next year or two. If they have a top 5 pick and they're in love with Rosen, Darnold, or even Josh Allen, or even somebody else, they'll take him. They're going to develop him. That's what they do.
And you limit the opportunity, you limit the probability of a run occurring because you have less talent now on this roster.
I mean, they
have to make a choice. They have to make a choice.
They could use
are
the
we
rest
committing to the Eli era, or are we?
They could use the rest of the draft to fill that talent gap and try to get some other playmakers. And also, they have free agency.
Not if you're not. First of all, they have so much money locked up. Free agency is not like they have a war chest. But anyway, we've reached our time limit.
Of course. All right. Make sure to tune in next week. We come to the end here. We'll recap some more football next week. World Series next week as well. For Mike Antosiewicz, I am Nick Kosko. You're listening to The Opening Drive here on 88.7 WRSU FM and online at WRSU.org. Have a good one, everybody.
Spinning out